Hello and a warm welcome as you join me on Search for Truth, your Bible teaching programme with Brian Johnston. Many thanks for joining me. In this series of talks called WEIRD, which is an acronym which we'll explain later, we're looking at how our Western society got its values and ideals and morals which we treasure today. The title of Brian's study today is Science. And Brian is well qualified to explore the relationship between science and Christianity, having been a senior government scientist for several years before becoming a full-time Christian minister. So here now is our Bible teacher Brian to talk science.
Thanks, John. During the COVID-19 pandemic in the United Kingdom, the then Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, said, "We will be driven by the science." He was referring to the approach he was taking in managing the health crisis that the pandemic presented his government with. Driven by the science. That could be a mantra of the West. Science, historically understood as the ability to understand the working of the universe, is a prized value of the West, as the words of the then Prime Minister show. Science, of course, works on the basis of rationality. The West would certainly not want to see itself as being driven by anything irrational. Scientist Paul Davies has said that we can't even begin to do science unless we take, in effect, a theological stance, which is to believe in the rationality of the universe. It's this that makes science worth attempting. This begins to reveal that the virtue of science and rationality is rooted in a theological stance. I still recall the thrill of deriving Kepler's laws of planetary motion. It's an amazing thing that abstract mathematics in our heads, expressed through equations on paper, can successfully describe the movement of the heavens and predict events in the physical universe. Why should that even be the case? If the whole of reality is a cosmic accident and we're just one small accidental part of it, then why should this one small part be able to give any meaningful explanation of the whole? One random accident cannot be expected to explain another accident. As one author has said, it's like expecting one small sample of spilt milk on the floor to be able to give an account of how the milk jug came to be upset in the first place. It's that ludicrous, preposterous. Einstein agreed that the most incomprehensible thing about the universe was that it's comprehensible to us. I was a scientist by profession, a logician. I believe in the rationality of the universe. Indeed, I must do. Tell me, other than by adopting a theological stance, how can I account for this belief in rationality? That means it is at least legitimate for me to consider the possibility of an omniscient, rational architect of everything. Science, as we know it, emerged on the world stage in Europe in the 16th and 17th centuries. Why then, and why there? Alfred Whitehead's view, as summarised by C.S. Lewis, was that men became scientific because they expected law in nature, because they believed in a lawgiver. It's no accident that Galileo, Kepler, Newton and James Clerk Maxwell were believers in God. We mentioned Galileo there, and that might trigger the thought in some minds that the Christian religion once opposed science in his time. But it's much more complicated than that. In opposing Galileo, the Catholic Church consulted the scientific consensus. This then was not so much science versus religion, it was progressives versus conservatives. In the end, according to David Bentley Hart, it was Christian universities that overturned a pagan cosmology. Galileo Galilei was one of the giants of early science, best known for his work in astronomy. During the 17th century, there was much debate about the motions of the heavenly bodies and whether or not the Earth was the centre of the universe. Galileo believed that the Earth moved around the Sun and argued against the popular view that the Sun moved around the Earth. In 1633, the Roman Catholic Church forced him to renounce this view as heresy. and imprisoned him for writing a play in which he argued in favour of it. Consequently, Galileo has often been portrayed as a martyr to progress, someone who was shamefully persecuted by an ignorant clergy simply because he attempted to further the advancement of science. The reality, however, is quite different. At the time of Galileo's trial, the available scientific evidence did not support his assertion that the earth moves, and his proof that it did was based on a flawed argument. It was only many years later that scientists were able to confirm that he was in fact right. Galileo was foolish and arrogant in the way he argued his case. He made enemies unnecessarily. Even at the time, many considered that he was the victim of politics rather than misguided attempts to safeguard any Christian view. At the time of Galileo's trial, the scientific evidence favoured an Earth-centred model. This was due to the imprecision of their instruments. It was only years later that Newton's laws of motion and gravity finally established the sun-centred model as being correct. Galileo was wrong in asserting that the Copernican system was correct. Although the planets do orbit the sun, their orbits are ellipses. Although Galileo was right in arguing that the Earth is in motion, his primary proof was wrong. For the tides do not arise due to the Earth's motion, and Galileo's contemporaries rightly questioned this. The Roman Catholic Church at the time had every reason to doubt Galileo's assertions, and the Pope had every reason to insist that Galileo should present Copernicus' theory only as a hypothesis. Galileo lacked humility and was foolish in the way he argued his case. He made claims that he couldn't substantiate and mocked those who held different views. He did not cooperate with other scientists, such as Kepler, and failed to learn from them. For many years, Galileo had been demonstrating that Aristotle's science was wrong. Since much of the teaching in the universities was based on Aristotle's writings, the academics of the time felt threatened. Galileo's method in debate was to deliberately humiliate his opponents, making them appear foolish. Consequently, he made many powerful enemies. We'll allow Professor Giorgio de Santillana of MIT to sum it all up. He says a major part of the church intellectuals were on the side of Galileo, while the clearest opposition to him came from secular ideas. In short, it was not the Christian religion against science. Galileo was a firm believer in God, and remained so all his life. The astronomers of the Jesuit educational institution endorsed his work, but he was opposed actually by secular philosophers, enraged at his criticism of Aristotle. By the way, we should clarify, from the reference frame of people on Earth, the sun does rise and set, and it is appropriate for the Bible to use this kind of language in describing its motion, just as scientists themselves do today. If God and science don't mix, there would be no Christian Nobel Prize winners. In actual fact, between the year 1900 and the year 2000, over 60% of Nobel laureates were self-confessed believers in God, rising to over 65% for physics and over 72% in chemistry.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning new mercies I see. All I have needed thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning your mercies I see. All I have needed thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning your mercies I see. All I have needed thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto me.
The hymn we just heard describes God's faithfulness in upholding his creation in the precise motion of the heavenly bodies, giving everyone on earth summer and winter and springtime and harvest. Now, if you'd like a transcript book of all these talks, you can download an online soft copy free of charge at churchesofgod.info/media. That's churchesofgod.info/media. If you prefer a hard copy book, please write and tell us and we'll post one out to you. Just ask for the book title Weird and be sure to tell us your postal address. If you prefer to use our postal address, it's Search for Truth, Hayes Press, The Barn, Flaxlands, Royal Wootton Bassett, Swindon, SN4 8DY, UK. If you prefer to use email, then our email address is sft@churchesofgod.info. That's sft@churchesofgod.info. You might be interested to know as well that most titles of Search for Truth transcript books have been turned into ebooks, and they're available at amazon.co.uk/Kindle-ebooks. When you're in the Kindle store, type Search for Truth, Brian Johnston, into the field and you'll find them. Many can also be ordered as a conventional print book from Amazon Bookstore or from our own bookstore at www.hayespress.org. And when you're on the site, use Explore Our Shop. Now, I sincerely appreciate the pleasure and privilege of your company today. Thank you for sharing your time, but regrettably, our time today has almost gone. But please do join me again next week if you're able to, when our subject will be the concept of freedom. But until then, it's goodbye and very best wishes from our Bible teacher Brian, our producer David, our singers, and me, John. So see you all soon, and in the meantime, may God richly bless you.
Pardon for sin and the peace that endureth, thine own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow.